What up, my fellow Survivor lovers? Welcome to Survivor Historian, part of the Challenge Historian podcast feed. I am your host and born again Survivor superfan, Jacob Hollaball. Thank you so much for being here with me and my wonderful and great and powerful co-host, Tony Lance. Tony, how are we doing this week?
Not too bad at all. Happy to get back in the saddle.
Yes, we are back after a 1 week break. Thanks for all listeners for allowing me my 1 week off-season vacation, even though it did come once Survivor had already started. But, you know, we're on a challenge schedule here, even though we talk about both shows now. So we are back. And as Tony and I were kind of laughing about prior to recording, I do feel like we missed the best episode to miss. If we could have planned ahead, or if we knew what was going to happen in all the episodes, we might have picked episode 4, the Vanu farewell. And we normally, if we missed a week, we'd probably go back and talk a bit about the week that we missed, but I don't know that we need too much today. As I told Tony, I did fast forward through portions of it a little bit because it just was a little much. Felt like we'd seen the same story and I kind of knew where the ending was going.
Yeah, that's the downside too, is like, because Randon was evac'd, we had all the buildup. Like, we had this whole conversation already. Vanu had already lost his vote. So then when they lost again, there wasn't really that much to cover because Vanu still couldn't vote and they were still planning to vote him out. The only thing that had changed is he told them what he told the other two on the journey, which more so just sort of like solidified it. And we also learned that Moriah can't jump that great, despite winning Wipeout.
I don't know. She jump pretty regular for a regular person. I don't know.
Yep.
It looked funny when they were like doing the standing jumps on the beach or whatever, but like, yeah, I was like, I don't know. You clear a couple inches. Ask any regular person on the street. It's not like we have super big verticals or anything.
I was worried about the challenge though, because in my mind, the way that they were talking about it and the way that they were basically doing the training montage for Moriah,
they were going to have to grab something. And then
I was fully expecting it to be the jump out, grab the key. And then it was just like, run.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, you built this, you kind of made it seem triumphant, but like, no, I want to see her jump and grab the thing, because guess what? She would easily be able to. Like, when she jumped totally off the thing, again, very regular jump off of the thing. They don't make those things like, only Hunter's going to be able to do this. It's really far out there. Good luck. Like, yeah. So we learned that Jem doesn't think she can jump, but in reality can jump normal for most people. And we got Jem doing some stuff with an idol that we will talk about in this episode, because it obviously plays a major factor in this episode. But yeah, goodbye to Vanu. And the only other comment I did have was my dream scenario on Survivor, I don't think is ever going to happen, because this was the moment they kind of did it, where if there's such a consensus, I want a tribe one time to just tell the person, be like, hey, you're getting voted out tonight. We've got like 7 hours. What do you want? Can we make this like fun? What do you want to do last day on the beach in Fiji? It's you're going out. Let's get all those emotions out of the way and like have a good time. And they kind of did it. Like they told him, he knew. Again, they didn't vote. But I was like, in this scenario, if on like this second time going through this, they couldn't get all the way to the point of like, Vanu, you're going home. Can you cheer up? Can you have a good time? What do you want to do? Do you want to walk somewhere? Is there somewhere you want to go sit? Do you want to pray together? Whatever. It's like, if this scenario can't give me the moment I've always wanted of a tribe just being ruthless but kind at the same time, then I don't think we're ever going to actually see it. So that's your recap of last week. Oh yeah.
One other thing. The only other thing that I will say is I wasn't super keen on the no vote, on just the consensus at tribal, because
I don't like that at all.
Well, it could have yes, Vanu was the one most likely to go home, but it could have been a moment where Tiff and Q got rid of Kenzie, or Tiff and Kenzie got rid of Q, or something like that. Like, even if the vote was well clear what it was going to be, the fact that they didn't get to vote took away that little bit of their ability to play the game if they did want to try something.
Yeah, and I felt like they did it to like be nice to Vanu, or like Jeff and the production. I mean, they were clearly like we know they, meet with each of the cast member before they actually go into tribal. So I'm guessing it was like a firm, like,
yeah,
they tell them who they're voting for, but they also maybe can ask, like, are you, like, this is for sure, and maybe get a little, they've been watching obviously and everything else. But I'm guessing it was like to be nice to him in some way. But I'm like, if he's this big of a super fan, he would also like probably want to see his name on the parchment, like want to do the proper exit or whatever, So I don't know. It was weird, but I'm glad Jeff reminded him that, like, hey buddy, I'm not like your guru necessarily. And like Jeff gave him a hug, which he doesn't usually, I don't think he gives everyone a hug. And I think Jeff knew like this is going to mean a lot to this guy. So yeah, that was episode 4. Let's talk episode 5. Agenda is the same as always. We'll walk through the episode and then we'll hand out some awards, and then we will answer any questions we've received and or have for ourselves for future episodes. And that will be that. Any big programming reminders before we begin over on Challenge Fandom?
Our Kyland interview is now out. It sits just over 3 hours. We were able to go like super deep convo with Kyland. It was fantastic. Really interesting dude. Absolutely check it out if you're a fan of Big Brother or the Challenge or just Kyland in general. He really went into a little bit of everything.
Love it. That's fantastic. I look forward to listening, and I look forward to hopefully watching Kyland kick some ass presently wherever, Vietnam or wherever they are right now. Or maybe he's not. Maybe he's already out. I don't know. We turn the spoilers off after we learn the cast around here. And all of you should do the same thing. So, my only programming reminder is if you're a visual person over on YouTube, I did put a video up yesterday where I fixed the challenge. I have lots of ideas to fix the challenge. This one is the Daily Skull twist, and I'll just leave it at that. But I think they could fix a lot of formatting problems by moving the skull twist of old to daily challenges. And if that interests you at all, or the challenge interests you at all, you should go watch that YouTube video. That'd be really cool of you. And yeah. So now Survivor 46, episode number 5. Is that correct? We're on the 5th episode?
It is. As far as I know.
The last few seasons have been what? 12 episodes?
12 or 13.
12 or 13? Okay, so we're almost nearing the halfway point, which is wild. All right, let's dive into the storylines. Here we go. So we're skipping the fact that we do open the episode with Vanu for like a minute. But
I think that the camera people just forgot. The camera people just forgot which tribe they were supposed to go to, and then we're like, I'm pretty sure it's Vanu.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, that one makes sense because Vanu came back from tribal. I was more so laughing later.
Yeah, they had to show them briefly, but I'm glad it was as brief as it was, because it's like, can we just finally get on with having, a different tribe here be the focus? And we did. We quickly got to Siga, and we're going to talk about Siga first here. So to recap the portion of last week, when 2 weeks ago, we found out that Jem had the idol or the Beware thing from like the second day. And then last week on the episode we missed covering, Jem had decided to rehide the Beware advantage in a place that someone would find it. And they all found it together. And after some back and forth, Moriah decides to open it. They dig, and they eventually excavate an entire tree over the course of 3 days. And that catches us up to this episode where they've dug for 3 days. And now they've officially decided, Jeff doesn't lie to us, which I'm glad they reminded us, the viewers, that like Jeff won't lie to them, won't like mislead them in that big of a way or anything. And
Danny McRae would choose to differ with that.
What was his
hourglass
issue again?
It was the hourglass twist, where half the people got saved, half the people lost, and one person went and could change history. Yeah,
that's definitely the closest they've come to like actually pulling the wool over, part of the closest they come.
That's the closest they've come to people almost quitting based on a production move.
Yeah, which I get that, but we won't relitigate that from seasons ago. But I like that they all know, at least, because it makes shenanigans like this one possible, that they all know, like, hey, at some point we've got to know that clearly someone's fucking with us, because like the production wouldn't mess with us in this manner or wouldn't make it this hard. They wouldn't make us like literally uproot a tree. And so the blame game starts. And the first portion, everything pre-challenge, I would say my girl Jem, who I was thrilled finally we got to meet both Moriah and Jem, our two favorites that were also the two that we never got to see on the show through the first 3.5 episodes. I thought her acting was pretty damn good pre-challenge. I thought she did a great job. Because at first I was like, this is never gonna work. You're gonna get caught for this. This is way too big of a prank. Like, this is amazing and funny, but like, this is not. The whole tribe is obviously the end goal of this is everyone is suspicious of someone, and like, you're gonna really have to act your ass off to get out of this. And I thought she did, and I thought she accurately like played the blame game of like when she brought it up, how she like threw, all right, we have an alliance, there's two obvious people not in it, let's just throw them under the bus.
Yeah,
everything was good. What did you think of her performance of this part of covering up this lie?
Fairly good. The conversation with Tim walking through the jungle, a little bit off, because she got to the point where she was like, what beware advantage? And like, you guys have solely spent 3 days in their entirety digging a hole for a beware advantage. Maybe you know that part. But other than that, like, she was pretty good. The only thing that I have, and it's probably editing, is she was never digging. She was always standing behind them. So I don't know if that was just an editing thing and just the shots that they showed were everybody else digging. But
we got the one we heard her say one time, if you need help, let me know.
Yeah.
Because it did seem like there was only kind of room for maybe 2 people to like get down there at a time and dig. Yeah. But yes, it seemed like they kind of just let it be Tim and Maria and Charlie rotating the 2 of the 3 of them, and the rest, and maybe Ben at some point. But it did not seem like Jem or Moriah helped ever, and definitely Jem did not help. She just kind of stood there watching.
I think Moriah was more involved in the beginning before they started really digging down. I do also like that Moriah has become the de facto narrator of the Siga tribe. They're going to her a lot more for confessionals and sort of explaining what's going on and what the other players are doing, which is nice because it also shows that she's got a good read, especially on people like Ben.
They don't want Ben to run out of band and song and rock and roll references. So
I will say he did make me love him even more for referencing Motley Crue's Dirt book biography, because that was my first concert. My first concert was Motley Crue's Carnival of Sins tour.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So you were already pretty all in on Ben.
Yep.
He's got one at every turn. I mean, I'm impressed at how regularly, every time he every confessional or every time he's asked anything by Jeff, and half of the time that when they're just sitting around the camp, he has a reference to make, which is impressive. A deep knowledge there. Tim, I feel like Tim does. This is the moment he sniffs her out, and she's like 50-50. It's not a horrible moment, because it's just the 2 of them. She could recover from it if her conversations with everyone else are okay. But he definitely is onto her, and I mean, that I'm gonna make a few jokes at Tim, who I've come to really enjoy thus far, but again, off of the first episode where his just initial instinct was like, men versus women, here we go, all the men are all the women are sketch. I'm just gonna continue making jokes about that. So he was loving this moment of like, wait a minute, I think it actually was one of the ladies. Like, yes, okay.
He had a line and it killed me, and I don't remember if it was pre or post the challenge, but when they were talking, and it was when he was still trying to like suss out Jem, and he said like, I know that you and Mo are tight, and she said, well, I mean, like, I'm not really honestly super tight with anyone, but I know that. So he's like, well, who did you vote for? She goes, whoever pissed me off that day. Also not a great way to approach that one. But when Tim's response, because she said, I know that you and Ben are tight, and he's like, yeah, bros are tight. I was like, yeah, that is that is the qualifier. If you are bros, you are therefore tight in an alliance.
Yes, and there will be more bros being tight to talk about here.
Yes.
But we'll come back to Siga, obviously. So let's move ahead to Nami for the time being, where everyone is looking for an idol, and like literally everyone, and they're doing it. I would struggle in the Siga tribe, to be honest, with all of it. We don't need to discuss the salsa lesson on the beach, which looks great. But the whole, like, we constantly do group activities, I would probably be like, could I sit one out every once in a while without you guys deciding you don't like me and want to vote me out or something? But Nami similarly is all agrees to everyone can go look, but does it a little more traditional. Like everyone's going to go look on their own,
Yep.
except Hunter doesn't get to look on his own because his turning into his arch nemesis Venus has decided, I'm not going to be as good at this as Hunter. I'm just going to follow him. I'm just going to not leave his side, and I'm just going to bother him and hope he finds it while I'm standing there. And then we have to then we have to work together. Maybe I don't even. Do you think she in that is? She maybe says in her confessional or not, but like her strategy of following him is about like, if he finds it, I want to know because he's my enemy, or if he finds it, then like he has to work with me if I like the only one that knows about it.
I think Venus is just a professional shit disturber, and I'm here for it. Like she's on my draft team, and it was hilarious with her just being like, I'm not gonna find it. I'm just gonna follow Hunter around because he'll find it. And when she like flat out told him that she wasn't gunning for him because he was her meat shield, and everybody was very out in the open this episode of just being like, here's where I stand with you. And it's like very blunt of just, here, yes, you're a threat, but you are a meat shield, and they will come after you before they come after me. So I have no problem keeping you in this game. I will say I was a little bit bummed that they re-hid the Beware advantage, because Randon had told Venus where the box was before he was medevaced. But I understand that because it's a Beware advantage, the Beware portion would be gone at that point, because Randon hadn't like fully transferred it to Venus. It was just a matter of, here's where it is. I hope you can find it. So they clearly re-hit it so that somebody else would have their vote up for contention of being gone. But it sort of sucked because I knew that Venus, when she was out looking, she would have also been sort of haphazardly looking for the spot that Randon would have like told her. And then to know that somebody else, like for somebody else to find it, it was just kind of like, well, shit. Because it would have been cool if they would have left it in the game.
Yeah, that's a hard one when the way they set it up of like, you have this, but it doesn't, the challenge of it doesn't start until this point, and now you get medevac. That's definitely a weird one for them to figure out.
And I mean, I'm sure
the best decision is just start it over.
Yeah, and Jeff always talks about like they have, anytime that they bring an idol or advantage into the game, they have like a book of if this, then this. So I get that's their process. I just would have liked to have seen like not another clue and just see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Well, maybe you never know. They might have like given her, because this was
it was a couple days later.
This was like 36 hours later, because it was like the evening of night 9, I think, when they officially took him. This was on day 11. So maybe they gave her a brief, let's not move it until X time or something. Who knows? But she does not stick with the plan long enough, though. The conversation they have is great. I really enjoyed the, as he calls it, the cagey conversation they have. And yes, as you said, they're both wearing their honest feelings pretty clear the whole time, but it is definitely one of my favorite interactions of the episode. And then she leaves, and right after she leaves, he does go ahead and finds it and gets the same message everyone else does, and now has to sit and wait. Although he mentions the like fine print, but not all of it. I'm guessing, has anyone said at any point what happens when they don't go to
Jem mentioned something as well.
I think it maybe just becomes an idol or something. I don't know.
They have to do something. So it's like if you haven't lost by the time that like you merge or whatever, there's one side of it. There's one side of it of like you don't have your vote until you're all on the beach, because then you're not actually able to get the idol that would give you your vote back. But then the flip side of it is when you merge, you're given like X amount of time to figure it out, like before you get on the boat, sort of thing. Because we've seen it happen before. Because I think wasn't Bruce's like a Hail Mary, we're gonna merge, we have to get off this beach.
Yeah, but they had I forget what the situation was, but yeah, he had to like find it right before they
got in the boat and left,
lying from Jake and others to help them out and whatever. So I'm guessing, well, we'll find out next episode, but somehow Hunter will, obviously they did not lose, and we'll have I think, assuming next episode is an actual merge, and there isn't one extra challenge in here, they will have literally gone undefeated. They've got first every time the entire way through, which is just wild. And yeah, and Hunter probably will have an idol, because I'm guessing he'll figure out how to do whatever he needs to do.
Oh yeah. Now I do have a question for you, because you being a challenge fan as well, when people have read there is an idol in this box, do you ever just picture Brad just ripping the box apart? Like, I just fully expect somebody to read there's an idol in this box and drop the parchment and rip the box open, and then it says you cannot open this box until blah blah blah. He's like, oh shit.
Well, there isn't an idol in the box though.
No, because it's hidden.
Say that?
No, it's
there's the clue.
The clue to the idol is in the box.
Yeah, or the next clue. Yeah, because they get a clue for the key to the box that then has the clue of where they dig. Yeah. But yes, great reference, and Brad definitely would be like, well, I mean, I could just smash this open and see what you tell me afterwards, but I think they would tell him, you just lost your vote for good, buddy. Too bad. You don't get an idol anymore. You broke the rules. So yeah, Hunter's eventually going to have an idol, which is fantastic. And Nami just continues to coast at the challenge, which we will go ahead and just dive into now. The one thing that did stand out to me, and again, we now know the merge is going to happen next week, so this is the last challenge on day 11, but it ultimately won't matter. But the one thing about one team losing over and over, the only weird disadvantage that does eventually come back to the team that never loses, is it is weird to sit out half your tribe. And with the new rule of you can't sit out twice in a row, that it's kind of, again, it won't come back to like matter for them. Right. But having to decide, it was really in episode 4 with the reward challenge added in and sitting out 2 people of like, hey, like we actually have to like plan a little bit and maybe put the reward versus the immunity, like which is the priority and everything. And so it was just kind of jarring when Jeff was like, yeah, we need 3 of the 6 of you to sit out right now and like figure that out. It does at least finally start to add a disadvantage, but at a point where it ultimately doesn't matter, probably.
Yeah. It was nice to see one of these challenges again. Like it's so many components. They're all just like standard quintessential Survivor challenges. One thing I did find funny, and I couldn't figure out how it was happening, is Yanu's thing kept closing. Like their hatch, they had to open it every single time, but the other ones didn't. But like Tiff opened it and then went up and did the thing, stepped over the open one, but then it was closed again when Q went up, but then the other tribes didn't. So I don't know if they like knocked it or if they had to reset every time or what the situation was.
I think it probably was just because when it opened, it didn't lean very far back. And so at a wobble of the whole structure, probably it could fall pretty easily. And I'm guessing maybe they were just kind of making theirs wobble a little kind of more bounding around. It was, though, Yanu, who finally doesn't lose. It's amazing. They got second. They don't have to go to tribal, thank goodness. But you see the detriment of not eating plain as day in this challenge, because if these people were all well slept and well fed, Q, Tiff, and Kenzie, I would find it hard to believe they wouldn't have gotten through the obstacle part first. That's a pretty like quick athletic threesome versus the other trios that they're going against here. And the fact, like, as I was watching, I was like, damn, like it matters to have not eaten versus gotten a little bit of food, had a little bit of sleep, had a little bit of shelter, because they fall pretty far behind on the obstacle course part. And then I'm like, oh, well, like Q, I like kind of expected when Q started, I was like, oh, he's going to clear a lot of ground here. And it's like, no, pretty much not at all. He's also kind of struggling just to like get through this and move, which makes sense. But it kind of highlighted again, the whole once one tree that we've talked about all season, once you lose the first 2 and you don't have your flint and everything, like, and it spirals, like it's just a big gap, the advantage to disadvantage. And
and I mean, they held the record now for like the most days without flint. And initially I thought that I almost called bullshit on it, because he said if they lose this one, it'll be the tribe that has lost the most immunity challenges, because we went down to 2 last time with Yanu. with Lulu. But what happened was it wasn't the Lulu tribe because it was just Sean with the other part of the other tribe.
Yeah, they did the little swaps in there, so which broke up the chance at the record. But yes, they would have been equally tied. They were equally horrendous at the challenges as it turned out. And Nami, I mean, I'm surprised Jeff mentioning all of the kind of record things doesn't mention that like Nami. They never got second, did they?
I almost feel like they might have got second once, but I'm not 100% sure.
On the fishing,
maybe the fishing stuff,
best fishing gear. Yeah, maybe they did. I think they would have mentioned it if they literally got first every single time. And Siga probably would at some point. We'd get at least a confessional of like, yeah, we never lost, but like we can't win either, or whatever. It'd feel good to like get first. But they win again. And my only comment on the one thing I did see online, and thankfully was pretty brief after the 4th episode that we didn't cover, was there was some people out there trying to do Hunter Jonathan comparisons. And thankfully some people put out some quick videos of like, y'all need to calm down. I don't know if you remember that time they had to cancel a challenge because the ocean was too strong, but Jonathan's team finished because Jonathan finished first, and then they canceled the rest of the challenge. So yeah, Hunter is proving to be quite amazing at shooting or throwing of the things. He's his shot percentage on either shooting a ball into a basket or like a sandbag on anything is quite high and impressive, and he's definitely going to be a threat in the individuals if his balance is anything like all of his other physical attributes. But we need to not compare anyone to the great Jonathan Young, who still needs to be on the challenge. Please.
Yes, he does.
I don't know what the hell we're doing. But so Nami's great and basically goes undefeated, and Yanu finally doesn't lose. And then comes, of course, we do have to do one more journey. And I will say do you think Nami, who, they're the one, they get to choose who goes on the journey, but they essentially tell the other 2 tribes, you guys can go ahead and choose yourselves.
Right.
And they, Tim, one of them, Tim, volunteers, and then Q is kind of appointed by the 3 of them. Do you agree, or do you think they should have like actually used that power and like chosen, although there isn't like a lot to go on of like who you choose necessarily? But
I almost feel that like, so when Liz went on the journey, Randon sort of implied in his exit press that she decided like who she was taking from the other 2 tribes. So it could have like really, if Hunter were to choose, he would probably still choose those 2 people. So I feel like just based on the conversation they had at the journey, I feel like that would have been where he went anyway. It was interesting because it's basically the 3 most like physically strong players on each individual team, which you would think that everybody else would view as not a great thing to just put them all together. But
yeah. Well, my only thought is if I'm them, and it was Liz that went on the journey with Vanu
and Ben
a couple episodes ago, right? Yeah. If I'm them, I at least have that info because I think she shared everything he said. Of like he called Kenzie the mastermind over there and said Q and Tiff were super close. So I know it's probably thinking too far ahead, but if I'm them, I probably like I want Kenzie to come on this, and I want to like maybe confront her a little on like, hey, so just so I don't know if Banu was honest with you guys or not, but like, he told us you're the smartest person on your tribe, but that those 2 are like never gonna go against each other, like, and kind of put them on the spot or drive that wedge as much as possible. But yeah, ultimately, I think it probably curries a lot of favor to be like, you guys could pick, like, it's okay. We'll let, we don't want to ruffle any feathers here. And yeah, it does work out. They get there and they decide to make the physical threat alliance, which I think Tim is stoked about for many reasons. One, another all male alliance. Hell yeah. Go men for Tim. But also, yes, Tim was the appointed from the Siga tribe of like, you're the person that does the throwing or the last portion of each of these, the same way Q and Hunter has been. But respectfully, Hunter has obviously been amazing at the challenges, and Q is the one like former, the D1 athlete that is, you know, really hard on himself for not having been perfect at the challenges or whatever yet. So I also think Tim's like, hell yeah, you can group me with these two. Like, absolutely. We're the three big physical threats in here. Look at us. And I'm like, yeah, that's great for you, Tim. You're just having the best time out there. And he's the one that initiates it the most. I felt like Q was all in on it, and Hunter was maybe playing along a little more and was maybe not as like enthused about the whole idea.
Yeah, he seemed to be a lot more like, I'm going to say yes right now, and I'll see how it plays out for me later. He also, yeah, because at that point he hadn't lost his vote, but it would have been good to have, like, good to know that you've got a cross-tribe alliance going into a merge without a vote, because you know that you've got that pull. And I think Tim said Moriah, Q said Tiff, and then Hunter, of course, said Tevin as their second person to make their 6. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I did like that he also referred to them as the Brochacho Alliance, which is from David's versus Goliaths. So nice callback. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So many callbacks
this season.
Yeah,
every episode I feel like we've gotten like a legit from the cast themselves, like referencing a cast of old. So
yeah.
And speaking of casts of old and seasons of old, Tony, how easy for a Survivor historian like yourself he had to do 20 of the seasons, right?
Yeah, based on logo.
How easy would it have been for you to put them in order?
I got 17 out of 20. Of just
what?
knowing
You didn't get 20 out of 20? What tripped you up?
I think it was Panama and Cambodia and one other one that I just wasn't sure where they slotted in. But the rest, I knew their numbers. So like as he was rattling off the names, I was rattling off the numbers just to see if I could do it. And then somebody posted a screenshot the other day of the first one where it was all jumbled. And I just kind of like went through them and was able to number them all off. But there were a couple there that I just was like, I don't remember. A lot of it came down to, I know that this person's first season was this, and I know that they were on this returning player season, so therefore I know that this has to go here versus there.
Yeah, which he was doing a bunch of that, and to give him credit, they barely showed his like actual final result, but like he says, I got 8 out of 20, like that's pretty bad. But he really got like 3 wrong that then shifted it, because they show it quickly, him going and like, oh, the like sideways, like these are right, these are right, these are right. So he like misplaced 3 of them that shifted everything, that caused basically, over half the board to be wrong. But I was so love that they did this. It's my favorite thing when it shows up on the challenge. The couple times they've been like, can you put all the seasons in order? Because that's both very difficult, but also kind of at the same time the most basic of like knowledge of the show we could ever ask you, is just, here's all the seasons, can you put them in order? So I love that they brought it in.
I like that Jeff addressed it on Fire. I'm like 5 minutes away from finishing this episode of On Fire, but one of the things he said is like, because they talked about bringing Survivor trivia back, and he felt initially like it was exclusionary because you had to be such a high level of fan in order for Survivor trivia to be something that you're going to be good at. But then he said, like, when he thought about it, it's the same as a slide puzzle. If you're not good at a slide puzzle, you're not going to do well in a slide puzzle whenever the slide puzzle is in there. So that kind of reframed his understanding / interest in doing Survivor trivia again. And I love it. Like, it's nice to see those throwbacks, and it was kind of cool that they basically had to talk amongst themselves and see who was the biggest fan to go do this. Because it's also like, it's good information for the other two to have, that like, Hunter knows the shit about Survivor, we have to watch out for him, versus Q, who's just like, either one of you are going to do better than me on this.
Yeah, that is a sneaky, I hadn't even like thought of like, you don't necessarily, it's a disadvantage to be like, oh yeah, I'm like an expert on this show or whatever. Like I'm locked in. So I give props to Tim, who says he doesn't want to do it more or less because he's like, I think I would do okay, but like, I don't want to lose my vote because I'm the one going to tribal council here, which is appropriate, but also that is a smart angle to take of like, I don't want to act like I study this show too much or anything. But I think Hunter's kind of like, okay, Q said definitely not him, and then Tim wants to keep his votes. Like, okay, like I'll it seems like you're gonna maybe make me do it, and I'm willing to give it a try. And the first thing, I guess the first loss for Nami really of the season is this one here. So then they go back, and we head to for the first time all season, we don't head to Yanu. We head to Siga.
We did. We went back to Yanu.
We get to see them eat.
that was where I wrote that I think the camera people just accidentally went back to Yanu because they were after a challenge and just assumed that's where they were supposed to go.
That's true. Yes. And I mean, it was worth seeing them eat and celebrate.
Oh, it was nice.
We needed that for a minute or two. So felt great about that. And would you have the ability to wait for Q to get there? I don't remember if they did. I don't think they did. But
they didn't. They left him a third of everything.
Yeah. But like they're different pastries. They're different stuff. So like he didn't get to pick. Nope. And I know it would be impossible for them to sit there and be like, we got to wait a couple hours and these pastries are just sitting right in front of us. But like, I don't know.
I would try to wait, but yeah, like it's one of those things where I was sort of surprised that they were back there like immediately eating, but at the same time they seemed to save like a third of everything. It didn't seem like they were like, I'm going to take this pastry, you take this pastry, he'll take that one. It seemed a lot more like I'm going to take a third of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, and you can't throw a fit about that if you're Q, even if for any reason you're like mad because that would just not go over well. So
you don't get the communal aspect though. Like you're just eating the stuff when you get back.
It's weird of like now you two are gonna watch me eat and like you're still hungry. You're not satiated because you got to eat a pastry 11 days in or whatever. So like, it's kind of strange. If I'm him, I'm like, can I go to like the beach by myself then? But
I'm gonna take this elsewhere.
Feels a little odd. But we had to Siga. And they are scrambling, and it is a pretty decent payoff to the whole like two tribes don't have to go for the whole beginning is that then it is as chaotic as can be now on day 11 where they're like, oh, we finally have to actually talk about this for real. We finally actually have to make some decisions. And Jem, who obviously has the beware advantages now in play, starts to lose her acting abilities in my mind because it opens with this seemed kind of forced, hey, I want to idol hunt, but like I want to do it alone this time, which isn't that bad because they have been doing the whole like kumbaya, we literally 6 of us go look for an idol together, which I just wouldn't be able to stand if I was like, what the fuck's the point, guys? Like, come on. This is ridiculous.
Especially in the realm of beware advantages, because only one person is going to lose their vote, even if they look for it as a tribe.
Yeah, I didn't say earlier, but it's the only thing I haven't liked from my winner pick, Moriah, so far. Is I'm like, what are you? It's a beware advantage and everyone is there. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like you had the right idea, but when you dropped it, you shouldn't have picked it back up. It's just the worst thing you'd want to do in front of everyone.
Now, the thing that was interesting, though, that I didn't really think about until they got to tribal, is they technically, despite the fact that they all assumed that somebody had planted it there, she could have got to tribal. It could have been legit. And somebody could have left the note there but taken the clue. And she could have got up to the voting booth and it could have said, you have no vote.
Instead of 2.
Yeah.
Which would have been wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, they dug so far. I think they were at 100% confidence and deserve to be at 100% confidence of like, this is bullshit and like nothing's gonna come of this. But yeah, that would be a wild twist. It's like, and has that ever come up before that if someone who has an extra vote then loses their vote, and do you lose capacity to vote, or do you lose a vote?
My understanding is you lose your capacity to vote. Because
interesting if it was like you can use your extra, like you don't get your normal one, but you have that extra one, you can use it if you want to.
Because remember, Austin lost his vote last season, and then Drew gave him the thing he got from Caleb that restored a lost vote, so that he was able to vote that tribal. Because you can't, if you don't have your vote, then you can't play your shot in the dark either.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it has come up where they're just like, if you lose your vote, you lose your ability to vote, not just a vote.
Yeah. I wonder they never would release the the books, the rule books that they have or whatever, but I'd be fascinated to read all the different
Oh, me too.
scenarios because I believe them when they say that we have thought of every scenario we possibly can for all of these and like written them out. And I would love to read stuff like that of like, what would happen? Would Moriah be able to play it? Would she be just allowed to play a shot in the dark because, whatever, or anything like that? But obviously it doesn't matter. She does have her votes, and Jem eventually has hers as well because she is able to do the measuring, which I will quickly say, I'm glad they somehow did match all of the things she had to measure were like pretty spot on, especially the well or the tree mail or whatever was like quite literally an exact length on each side of the machete. But I'm not using the machete if I'm her. I'm like going and like putting the machete on my arm or something and like, okay, it's like this much of my arm, and like this will be less obvious if I go around and try to measure with my arm now or the stick or something versus like carrying the machete seemed a little obvious, but she gets away with it. She finds the idol. She's got an idol. She doesn't cover her tracks at all, which like she dug the idol up from like the dead middle of the walking path. And I was like, dude, it's pretty obvious. Someone did something here. Like cover that up. But that's the least of her problems because she eventually, you referenced this conversation earlier, but her and Tim talk, and it's in a montage we kind of get of Jem talking to Tim, Ben, and then I think a couple others as well, but they highlight Tim and Ben of her just being very aggressive of like, who are you guys voting for? I need someone to vote for. I'll vote for whoever you say. Who are you voting for?
Look me in the eyes.
And Tim reads it correctly, of like, this seems like she's just wants information, and it seems like the only answer to this is I'm the target and Ben is the target in her mind, and like there's no other way to read this situation. And I was like, it felt that way to me watching too. Like there's no other reaction to this Jem than like you clearly have no interest in actually working with them.
Yeah, and like they both picked up on it pretty quick. Like as soon as she came with her machete, Ben grabbed a hammer, and because he had to try to hold his face.
That was really, really great. And that they said it, that he like said it out loud to her. It wasn't even like just a confessional thing where he was like, well, she had the machete, so I had to get the hammer. It was like he said to her, like, you're carrying the machete. And then he's like, all right, I'm gonna throw this up on my shoulder then, whatever. So
well, and he said it again at the beach where he was like laying down, he had the hammer on his chest, and she's like, why are you sleeping with the hammer? He's like, so you don't hit me with the machete. The one thing that's weird though is Jem was fully willing for Moriah to burn her extra vote to get out Tim in this tight alliance of 3, presumably, without saying that she had an idol.
Yeah.
So if that comes out, then Maria's like, dude, what the hell? Like, I was willing to give up my advantage to make sure that we had the upper hand, and you couldn't even give me a heads up about this. And I understand why you wouldn't want to let everyone know that you have a hidden immunity idol, but like, that's where she dug herself literally a hole, is because everybody on the tribe dug for 3 days. She can't tell anybody that she has it because she just let them dig for 3 days for it. And she painted enough of a target on Tim's back that Tim sort of became like immune by fluke because nobody wanted to vote for him because they assumed, based on her planting the seed of Tim has the idol, that like they didn't want to go up against him and potentially have him play it.
Yeah, they did. They're only, I think they said they were going to do 3 Ben, 2 Tim, to like hopefully flush the idol or whatever. But yeah, you get into way more logistics where you need more people to be on board than otherwise you would have. And yeah, it all definitely kind of backfired on her. And I do think, again, like I greatly enjoyed the prank from a viewer's standpoint. Like, it's super entertaining, but it's just really, really difficult to have eventually pulled off all the way through. And it was impressive that she kind of pulled off 50% of the way through. But eventually this, and it led me to be even more shocked when she handled the conversations with Tim and Ben as
Yeah.
poorly and as obviously as she did. I was like, well, you got away with like lying to these people's faces as they dug for 3 days. I thought I had a really, my estimation of your acting
Yeah.
abilities and kind of, just, being able to talk through these conversations like went way up, and then suddenly it just went way back down. And
Well, Ben
wasn't
had a
good.
great line too about it, where he said, like, she's playing really hard, and if you're playing for the end game now and you're already thinking about the $1 million, then you're not gonna get there. And that's the thing. You can think about the $1 million and you can think about how you're gonna get there, but if you start making moves based on already being there, then you're not gonna get there, especially on day 11 of a 26-day game.
Yeah, no, it until it's the merge, because eventually none of the stuff that happens before the merge is ever a real factor in the final tribal in any way, as far as like some impressive move or anything. So it's purely just, how do I survive till the next day? How do I survive this vote? How do I get one person to agree with me? Yeah. So she was thinking too far ahead, but it does ultimately come down to the two we kind of would have thought it would, that Charlie and Maria in the middle here have the full control of the choice, and they reaffirm to each other that they're in lockstep. I thought they'd both do a very good job of being open about, like, she asks in probably the best way you could, and I think did need to ask, like, hey, is Ben like pushing me out in your mind or not? And he affirms like, no, he's not, but like it's good that we have a third person that can kind of be very reliable, or that like believes that I am maybe that person to them. They definitely are in full control and seem as best positioned as anyone, I feel like, going from this tribe into the merge, and maybe from any of the tribes going into the merge.
I feel like the best possible alliance out of those 6 people are Mo, Ben, Charlie, and Maria, because I think that they are a tight, cohesive 4. I think that they've all really gelled from what I've seen with each other. And it was sort of like Ben had Tim kind of, Mo had Jem kind of, but those 4 in the middle were actually, like, whether they knew it or not, really in sync. And I think that that's what we'll likely see, is that it'll probably be those 4, especially where one of my like favorite moments of the episode was when Mo came up to Charlie after they had that conversation about Ben, and she was like, look, I know this sucks. I know that you're really close with Ben, and I know that you don't want to do this. Anything that you need, let me know.
Yeah, that definitely helps them more easily repair what is a good relationship, it seems like, after she, because she is the one that she does go through with voting for Ben eventually. And she then can easily take, because the one time Charlie and Maria reference a 4-person version of anything, they say Ben and Jem as like the 2 they could work with. And so I think now then Jem's obviously out, and so Moriah could be the one to fill in, and they could still be like, we need 4, and this is the 4, and Tim's on the outside of that. But they head to the tribal council, and it was a master class in no one saying anything. In a more entertaining version of it than usual, because Jeff was definitely trying his best, and they all, given this situation they were in of like, it's day 11 and none of us have been here yet, and no one has any idea, they all seemed like legitimately confident. I don't feel like anyone, it wasn't just that Jem got blindsided. It really actually was a, like, when Jeff says like, whoever gets voted out tonight, it seems like it's going to be like a real blindside, like not one of the fake ones that we like always just call everyone a blindside, but like seems like a real one. And everyone's like, yeah. And I was like, wow, I actually don't see, Tim doesn't seem nervous. Ben doesn't seem nervous. Charlie, Maria, Moriah, like no one, legitimately no one seemed nervous. And I don't know that I've ever really witnessed like that cohesive of a confidence.
No, I think it was, I want to say it was Ghost Island, maybe. They really focused a lot more on like voting blocks, where it was different groups of people that would work together differently every vote, just to kind of like work their way through it. rather than like a hard set alliance. But I haven't really seen, and I guess millennials versus Gen Xers, Hannah coined the trust clusters, as far as the different groups of people that you can trust for like 1 vote, 2 votes, 3 votes sort of thing. And you move through it however you can. But yeah, as far as, especially new era, this is the most confident that an entire tribe has gone into tribal knowing that one of them is leaving.
Yeah, where there's 2 clear plans, everyone is fully confident on which one of those is happening. And yeah, so it's like a legit blindside. Jem goes out. And my question for you, another rules question, has it ever been 100% confirmed what if there is a hard and fast rule of would she have been allowed to give her idol to someone if she wanted to try to secretly like hug Moriah and Maria and or Moriah
before being voted out?
It took till the very end. I finally have gotten confused. We finally got to talk about Siga and Moriah and Maria both, and I finally messed up the names. Either one of them would have worked, but would she have been allowed to like if hug someone and like put it in their pocket or put it in their bag or like try to hand it to them in secret or anything? Are you allowed to give away your stuff, whether in secret or in open, once voted out, or no?
Not once voted out.
Okay.
You can do it beforehand.
Like while he's reading the votes, can you? Or
not,
the moment
I believe it's once he comes out and with the urn, then like everything's locked.
It's done, yeah.
But if it's like before that, then you would be able to pass it off. Or if you think that like something might go down at tribal and you have like an absolute ride or die that you know isn't going to vote you out because you gave them the idol, then you can kind of give it to them and say like, look,
yeah,
if this doesn't go my way, I want to make sure this stays in the game.
I think you should be allowed to give it away after you're voted out. I think if you want to try to secretly pass it, I think you should be able to. I think that would be fun. Or I guess it's probably because it would also be, you could like mess someone's game up by if you were allowed to give it away by being like, hey guys, I had an idol. I look like an idiot, but like I wanted this person out. You can have an idol. Now everyone knows you have one. Congrats or whatever. And, you know, deal with that. So I'm guessing they want to avoid
it.
That.
And that's the thing too, is it reminds me of Victoria on season 38 when she, on her way out, she was just like, my vote's for Gavin. Not necessarily because her vote was for Gavin, but because she wanted to put the heat on Gavin on her way out the door. Which is like a really badass move of just being like, if he's still sitting there, he's got one of the votes from Final Tribal already.
Didn't someone do that last season?
I
thought someone said something either like to Julie or...
I want to say that when Emily left, she said that her vote was going to the person who played the game the best.
Yeah, but like it was insinuate, like we kind of...
But it was insinuating like...
about it at the moment or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was going to... I thought Julie got called out in some way, something like that. But yeah, Jem says nothing, which I was impressed by. Zero. No comment to anyone, no hugs to anyone, no nothing. Just silently leaves, and it's definitely a bummer. We barely knew you, Jem, but it was a fun episode and a half that we actually got to see you on television. And yeah, that's it for the main episode here. So let's go ahead and hand out some awards.
I think that the women actually made friendship necklaces at one point on Siga. All 3 of the women had like a wooden beaded necklace on black string. And I noticed that Jem had one when she was talking to Tim, and it was just like, it was very, there's a thumbs up. It was very big beads. And then when they were showing Tribal, I noticed that Maria had one. So then I was like waiting to see if Mo had one as well, and she did. So they all had different beads, but they all had like a black corded necklace with wooden beads on it. So I wonder if they made those during one of the many times that they weren't going to Tribal.
Yeah, they must have. And that's too bad that didn't hold them together. And to make maybe my last Tim men versus women thing does come back to like the women alliances do fall apart a little quicker than the male ones tend to do historically on this and other shows, as far as once they're actually formed. And so like, yeah, you made friendship necklaces and then you still did her dirty like that, and you didn't even know she had an idol and she didn't even tell you, like, oh, Come on, ladies, you got to get it together.
It
Don't let Tim be right. Don't let Tim end this season being right. Okay, we can't. He's 1-0, and hopefully we'll see if he's gets any more wins.
I think that female alliances are forced together a lot more as well, because the guys see any number of women and they're like, well, they're a female alliance and they're going to take out all the guys. And you're like, sir, there are 4 men and 2 women. I'm like, no, but they're gonna flip 2 guys and then they're gonna take us out. And then based on that, the girls are like, I guess we're an alliance now because everybody is gunning for us as a group, so we might as well be a group. With like, sometimes that's the only thing that they have in common. Very rarely do you see the women say, oh, well, they're clearly in a men's alliance.
Yeah. Well, it's just this pattern just plays out over and over of all parts of it. And girls
are scary.
Yeah, I guess to some of us, I guess so. Let's talk some awards. Let's talk some good quotes. I think we haven't referenced really many, if any, throughout the episode here. I've got 2 nominees. What say you as far as quotes go?
I got 3.
Let's hear them.
So I've got Moriah going into the voting booth and saying, I'm scared and so nerding out at the same time. She was the everyman this episode. When she walked into the challenge, she just like mouth wide looking at everything. Like you could see the instant recognition of what the challenge was. And then again when she went into tribal, and then again when she went into the voting booth. And then when Ben was talking about how we all wake up in the morning, shred the aqua dump, and then Moriah cut in. She was like, just to clarify, we do not aqua dump together. That is the one solo activity that we do. And of course, Ben's line of, she's holding the machete, so I grab the hammer. I'm like trying to hold my space.
Yeah, all fantastic. I will add to it. Charlie and Maria, right? The last basically thing we see before the commercial in Tribal Council is Charlie says, this is the end for someone. This is the beginning for us, or this is our beginning. I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but I thought was really, really quality quote and phrasing, and just, affirmed that duo that we think is going to be quite powerful. And then the other one, Mr. Jeff Probst himself, we didn't mention Sassy Jeff. I really got a kick out of Last Tribe to Finish, otherwise known as and they all fill in losers. And then he goes with I thought they might say Yanu, which is just, just brutal. Jeff, way to have fun with it. But, he, at some point, this is your fault that this keeps happening over and over every season. But I appreciated Sassy Jeff. So I did appreciate Sassy Jeff a lot. But I probably like Ben's the best.
Me too.
Yeah. So we'll give the award to Ben. And is there any moment or is the Ben and Jem also going to get the moment award for the machete and hammer?
So it was Ben using the hammer for safety, Mo comforting Charlie about voting for Ben. But then at Tribal, it was something that like wasn't even, I don't even know if it was supposed to happen. It was just like an editing thing that I absolutely loved. Jem said something about rocking the boat, and it immediately cut to Ben. And Ben had this thought, like this look on his face that there was an internal monologue. He's like, but I like to rock. Am I rocking the boat? Because as soon as anyone mentions rock, they cut to Ben. No matter whether like what the definition of rock is for that situation, does not matter. They are cutting to Ben. And I think that was my favorite because it was just so like under the radar, but so good.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty funny. And yeah, he definitely, if he hears like, wait, someone else made a reference to rock and roll, it has to be about me then too, right? Like, that would be a good way. Maybe if any of the others clock that, like a good way to cause some paranoia for Ben in the future is like, if we want him to think it's him or for some reason, just like start making a bunch of like rock and roll references and he'll think we're like trying to coded language, get him riled up or something. It's probably the same quote and moment are probably the same. I did really enjoy Hunter and Venus, that conversation. Yeah. So that, and then in cagey Jeff, was great. But I think, the same thing gets the quote and the moment of the episode for me. This is going to be interesting. So best gameplay. My nominee is actually the one thing we skipped over from this episode. before I reveal that, do you have any nominees for best gameplay? Maybe we have the same thing.
So, on like a surface level, just initiating a strength alliance to try to navigate a merge boot situation is smart. Whether it'll play out, I'm not sure. But my best move is when Moriah used her extra vote, she used different handwriting on both votes to not draw attention to the fact that she voted twice.
I did not even pick up on that. That is smart. Yeah. Although everyone on her tribe knows she has an extra vote, right?
But they didn't know if she was using it.
Yeah. They'll eventually be able to put it together unless Ben isn't honest about having lost his vote.
Yeah, because that was the thing is like he wasn't 100% upfront about it. He said like just assume that I've lost my vote, but he never outright said it. Yeah. So it could have looked like a Ben vote. But yeah,
it's still worth doing in case it works out.
She also wrote Jamila on one and Jem on the other, which was interesting too.
Wow. Very smart, very astute observation on your part as well. I assume though Ben will be honest and tell him he didn't vote because he only lost the vote for one. So like he no longer has that penalty hanging over him or anything. Those are both good. And I will say of the making the alliance at the journey, it was the everyone pick a second person part of it that was the smart part to me, because everyone on every journey like says, at least like, well, the three of us should work together if we end up on a beach together, whatever. Like you kind of have to say that, and so I like that they like went further to solidify like, no, like we want to, and like we would need more than three, so like let's think through it and name your person, because that also then was information gathering for all three of them of, if this alliance we just talked about doesn't pan out, I think I could probably trust the person they said is like actually the person they maybe would be most inclined to work with or whatever. Yeah. But my best gameplay goes to the one moment we didn't talk about because we've just talked enough about Yanu that we skipped over the brief bit we get of them prior to the challenge, where Q in front of Kenzie says that he's, alludes to like, I might be ready. She says something about like, we're driven to the end here, whatever. And he says, I might be willing to give up. Like, I might be willing to quit. Like we might hit a point where it's just pointless. And why not? Like I should leave, and does a very good job of like making it seem like a sincere, like, no, like I'm struggling bad enough that I'm actually thinking about it. I'm not saying I'm going to quit, but I'm thinking about it. And so kind of puts her at ease, and then goes to Tiff and says, hey, this is a plan. I'm trying to make her feel really comfortable that I might be like checked out, and if we end up back at tribal, like that I'm like down to fall on the sword again, like I kind of offered to do before, and like you could vote me out to make her feel comfortable, and then we'll get her out. And I thought that like Q has been, as the coaching Vanu, I've been like a little mixed reviews of like Q's methods himself or his like strategies himself, but in this one I was like, that was actually like really well done, and Kenzie definitely seemed to buy it, and like Tiff seemed to be like, that was a good job, that was a good idea. So I really liked that from him. I thought it was pretty smart and well done.
Yeah, definitely.
And laying the groundwork for it. They definitely all thought they were losing again, that's for damn sure. But he didn't have to put that into play. So what about worst gameplay? Do we have any bad game? I guess
just Jem playing too hard.
Two conversations, like,
yeah, that's really it. Like obvious. It was a pretty solid game all around. I really liked how Charlie phrased it, where like we don't have a hunter or a Q, so we have to be scrappy and we have to be resourceful. And I think that's really true of the Siga tribe. Not that they're not capable, because clearly they are, but they know how to use their people to their advantage when they like sit people out or are trying to figure out who does what in a challenge, everything like that.
Yeah, for sure. What about episode MVP? Who you got?
I think I've got Moriah, just based on how she was able to navigate the whole thing. She was part of the like women's core alliance, and then plus Charlie, but she was able to keep Jem off the scent of potentially being voted out, and the same with Mo for that matter. But she also just played a really good game, like really stoic, and she said all the right things at tribal. Again, I really liked the fact that she used two different styles of handwriting and two different ways to write Jem's name to vote her out. And yeah, she was just like a super badass this episode.
Okay. I'm always down for that because, at my winner pick, and I am feeling good and feel like she had a quality episode as far as gaining momentum and ground in the game. But I'm going to give my MVP to Jem because it's my last chance to do so. And I think I at least validated the potential I saw in her being one of my favorites, even if it was basically one episode worth of content. But the prank was really funny and entertaining, even if it didn't really cost. Again, it wasn't what cost her. It was that she just was too aggressive and handled those conversations in the wrong way. Too obvious, I should say, is the best. She was just kind of pretty obvious of what the intentions were, and you can't be obvious in this game, or at least to that level. But I was very entertained all the way through, and she handled the exit well. So I'll give my MVP to Jem. You give yours to Moriah. I'm winning on both accounts there, I feel like, anyways. And now let's finish up with some questions and predictions. First up, the most important, is it going to be just a real, actual, hey, tree mail, drop your buffs, come to this beach, you're all in one tribe, done, merge, no transition period? Or is there going to be a transition period? What do you think?
I'm worried because on Fire, I don't remember whether it was last week's episode or this week's episode, Jeff was referencing how, it must have been last week's episode because they were talking about how Jeff never lies sort of thing. And he did acknowledge that the hourglass twist was a terrible twist, and he has like fully admitted to that. But he also said that like he's also very intentional in what he says and how he words things and everything else. And the reference that he gave was Survivor Thailand, when everybody was supposed to like paint themselves and then show up to the challenge, and then they got paired up with the person on the opposing team that had the same paint color, and then they just like sat and got to know each other or whatever. And he kept referring to them as their two separate tribe names, but then they did all go to one beach and there was a feast and everything else. But throughout the entire thing, he called them by their separate tribe names, never said they were merged, never gave them new buffs, anything like that. So as much as there were things that would lead you to believe that there was a merge, there were also things that would lead you to believe that there wasn't a merge. However, one of the players was on the bottom of her tribe and she hated her tribe, and she just like flat out was like, I'm joining these guys, and then like told her tribe that she was doing that and was like, I don't care about you guys have been nothing but terrible to me the entire time, I'm going with them. And then it wasn't a merge because they got back to the thing and they were talking about, well, since we're merged, and then Jeff's like, I never said you were merged. And then it was the whole oh shit moment. But because he referenced that, and because we got to see Mo specifically say Jeff doesn't lie, I'm really interested to see all of the fine print on this tree mail when it comes out. And I refuse to acknowledge that it's a merge yet, because all we saw was somebody reading part of the like gather your stuff, and then the Siga dance chanting merge, and we have yet to see from the parchment that it specifically says that they have merged. So yeah. I refuse to believe it yet. I could see them doing all the tribes on one beach, still separate. I could see them doing, I really hate the whole half people are immune, half aren't, but I could see them doing it again. Yeah, my hope is a proper merge.
There has yet to be a just one note and it's over merge in the modern era. It has always been a transition episode, some sort of, you're actually in two now, half of you are safe, half of you aren't. Somehow, some way, there is like a one challenge, one tribal process to get from we've begun, you maybe are on the same beach, to you're actually in one full tribe. Well, here's the hoping. It would be amazing. I would jump for joy. I'd literally jump up out of my chair or couch or whatever I'm sitting on to watch this next week if they read the tree mail and it's like full blown. They get to the next beach and they're given buffs, and it's like, no, like we're having an individual immunity today. It's full blown, and everyone is up for tribal. I want everyone to be available for tribal council and have like a 12 people up for vote type of situation.
Yeah. And even if they do first man, first woman, don't care. Or like first person out of both groups, don't care. But as long as everybody is then up for grabs, and they've just split into 2 groups randomly. There's going to be a winner from each group.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine by me.
Something
They've
that
done it
doesn't
before.
make half of the group or 2/3 of the group safe.
Yeah.
And it ends up being like a similar tribal council feeling to the small tribes to begin with. So
yeah.
What new they will, we at least know they will all be on a beach together next week.
Yes.
We get enough footage of that. Which new potential pairing are you most excited to see? Who are you just dying to see what the interaction looks like when they get together on a beach?
I want to see Tevin and Ben, just because I think that it would be very, very interesting. Tevin is an actor.
That's the most they could either be best friends or they could absolutely hate each other. I think pairing that we have. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see if there's like a space-time continuum issue when Liz and Moriah get on the same beach. That'll be very interesting to me.
If Liz walks up and she's like, wait, so are you like super great? Because like how alike are we? That would be fantastic.
It's like so strange that they look so much alike. And I also just want to see how Kenzie does. I want to see if what Vanu had said negatively impacts her game, because I think that she will be a strong social player as long as the target didn't get painted too big right from the outset, because I think that she will bond with, like, I would say probably like Tevin, and I would say Venus. I could see her bonding with, like with Charlie, with Moriah. Like, I can't really see anybody that she would really clash with, right out of the gate. It just depends on how big that target was.
Yeah, so my like pick for this is Kenzie and Venus, because I think they're the two that if everyone does come in with some hesitancy of like, we were told Kenzie is smart social butterfly, and so if you know that going in, then you would have some tepidness of like, yeah, I like you in this first conversation, but I'm supposed to, like my only knowledge of you is that I'm supposed to be, you're working me, you're tricking me, whatever. And that Venus has a little of that going on her own tribe too, and that they would have some of that Tevin Ben of like, it just in a vacuum, the two of them meeting would either be kind of best friends or like, nah, you're kind of my like rival on this beach, but if they could get pushed together of like, we're both kind of being targeted for being like the, like, pretty social women, whatever, like, could we work together and like then if they could we find a way out of this? And I feel like we haven't gotten full clarification on who has significant others or not of this, but I think there's enough single men to potentially be charmed. And in Kenzie's case, I referenced a few episodes ago the one moment, that the half a second moment that stuck out to me when she was like holding Bono's hand against her face. I'm like, you know how to turn the charm on, Kenzie. We've seen it in a more of a platonic kind of way, but we've seen it. And I'm just fascinated at the idea if Venus and Kenzie are like the two that are put on the outs immediately, if they bond together and they're like, dude, one of us just take a walk with Charlie. Come on, we could do that. We could get him on our side or whatever. And then the flip side of that is, obviously, I'm just thrilled to know, does Tim immediately call an all guys meeting? guys, I don't know if you know, but there's some women that are playing this game too. And I bet you they're meeting right now. And then I think Tevin would be the one to be like, we're meeting right now. Are you sure? I don't know that they might be, because we left them. Because I was going to say, meeting right now.
You left all the women at the beach to come over here, so you forced them into a meeting.
Were they an alliance until this moment when we kind of made them one? Yeah, so I want that to play out in full. That would be fantastic. Who ditches their tribe first? Whether it is
Venus.
a full merge or not, you think Venus is the first to be like, screw this tribe, I'm out of here? Like,
case in point, when Tevin and Soda were singing their song and everybody was just kind of like sitting around, Venus was sweeping the floor, like not at all engaged in what anyone else was doing.
That song, I will say, both was pretty solid impromptu song and really great work by the editing production staff of like, it obviously they they were a cappella in the moment,
Yep.
you know, and that was added in, but they like made it sound like an actual kind of song after the fact. And
it is an actual song now. They get royalties on it because it just so happens that Soda and Tevin are in whatever organization that you have to be in order to get royalties for songs. And so it is, I think it might be the first Survivor original song.
Well, okay, so I had listened to part of Pod Has Spoken, Tyson's podcast on The Ringer this week, and he actually mentioned he put it as he was never sure if it was a Coach story or real, but he said Coach had told him one time that he had sung, like Coach had like made up a song or two on the show, and that they contacted him before the airing of that episode, and that they paid him a few $100s because they said now the song has to be like trademarked or whatever, and like you have to get whatever. And Tyson was like, and I have no idea if that's just some bullshit that Coach would say or not, but he was like interested to know if then Tevin and Soda like were able to copyright and then get paid any small amount of money by Survivor for like using that in the show, or if it's like, no, you're like on the show, you're getting paid to like be on the cast or whatever, and like we're filming you.
If it's like real world,
if you start singing if this was the case, you could in theory just sing at all times. Like I don't have a conversation, it has to be in song, because then they have to pay me even more after every episode. So that'd be interesting. But yeah, it would make a difference if like, no, we're actual like artists, a part of, SAG is, Screen Actors Guild for actors, whatever, but that version of it, whatever the musical equivalent of that is. Yeah. That'd be interesting.
Jeff brought it up on Fire because it was something that's never really been done before. And normally you have to pay the rights for whatever song comes out. But when it's an original song, then it works differently, but they were able to essentially copyright it. And Tevin and Soda will be getting the royalties for it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Which, that was the other thing Tyson brought up when explaining that, was that they're told explicitly don't sing like popular songs or whatever, like we can't show it, which then made me immediately realize, oh yeah, Charlie and Ben are singing all fucking day long. There's no way these two, which we do get the quick reference in this episode, they have done way more. Ben has re-challenged the Taylor Swift discography with different artists, and I was actually kind of thankful we only got the like 3-second, hey, they're still doing this. We don't need to show you it again because it's just naming the 150 Taylor Swift songs again. But those, I wonder how many times they've had to ask Ben to be like, stop, hey singing. Dude, that's a really popular song for the 7. That costs a lot of, like, can you stop singing that? Because we are filming what's happening right here, and we'd probably like to, everything else happening, we'd like to maybe be able to show. I think that rule is definitely coming into play for those two.
Oh, 100%.
Final thing then, how are we feeling about our winners picks? Because I'm feeling damn good. I feel like I got it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with Tiff. Like, I think that she's in a fairly good position going into a potential merge. I think
she's better than Q. Of those two being tied together, I feel like Q is more vulnerable than Tiff.
Yes, me too.
That. Yeah. She's in a solid spot. And yeah, I think Maria's just in a fantastic spot. And I feel like, who from Nami, is Tevin in the best spot on Nami?
I would say, because Hunter's a bit too much of a target just based on performance. But I would say Tevin is probably the best like social player there. And he'll be able to like weave himself in pretty good, pretty quick.
And he's one of the only people that has a solid, like, Hunter's like a real number one ally, while he also has Soda believing that he's a number one ally. And so he, kind of has the two number ones, and that's an ideal spot to be in. So yeah, I'd say Tevin, Tiff, and Maria and Charlie pretty equally are the people in the best positions coming into the merge scenario. Well, alrighty then. That's episode number 5. I kept in my notes and everything calling it episode number 6. I felt like I'd missed more than one episode. But that's episode 5. So next week's the halfway point then. I guess that makes sense. If they merge, it's the halfway point of the season.
We did have a question from Jen, but we kind of already answered it, which was what we thought about the alliance that was made on the journey. Smart that they brought in like an extra person for each person. Interesting to see how it goes. I think that people like that in this game need to prepare for a merge situation because they are prime targets for a merge boot. Like Hunter going into the merge without a vote is dangerous for his game. It's always dangerous to not have a vote, but to be as dominant of a player as he is and to potentially go into a merge situation. Now, if he's on the side that wins, if they do a split and he wins immunity, then he could technically win immunity, go to tribal without a vote, come back, be fine. But that's a lot of what ifs.
Well, and the other thing though is it does suck. I'm sure he's going to be very good at the individual things, but like I haven't heard a player in the game yet reference, even more now in modern new era Survivor. There's like two very different skill set, not very different, but two clearly defined skill sets of like the challenges that are most common and the format of them for everything when you're in 3 tribes, and then the stuff when it's an individual. And like there's no more really at all shooting anything the way Hunter has proven extremely adept at. There's rarely anything that is like strength based when it's like, hey, you got to push this thing, and it really helps to have the Hunter on your team that can push this huge ball up this ramp or whatever. It is so almost always some form of endurance, stamina, balance is like half of them, and the other half are like kind of more random carnival game-esque or puzzles. And it's like it just like flips. So, and you know, he definitely, I would be led to believe, has very good balance and muscular stamina and, you know, and determination and everything. So like he's gonna be good at them, but it's not like this one-to-one thing. And so sometimes it can feel like it's this you know, like this huge target has been painted, but like, do you guys realize that like the game's become very different now? And like I'm gonna be good at them, but I'm no longer gonna be like the best asset out here, whatever, which I think we saw from my Jonathan reference earlier. Like on his season, he was still very good at the individuals, but it became him versus, was it Lindsay was his former tribe member, whatever, that won just as many. Cause it was like, yeah, these are like a different thing. And now like, I'm probably the best one here at this stuff. Cause I'm like small and great core strength and balance. And like, so now I'm kicking everyone's ass or whatever. So we will see. But yeah, lots to look forward to. Hopefully it's a merge next week. We will be back next week at a regularly scheduled Thursday to Tuesday time slot, but starting to become more consistently over the weekend. Any closing thoughts or words, Tony?
I would just like to reference, I drank most of my coffee before we started really getting into it, but I do have a Jess Chung mug of her eating an ant. And then on the other side, it's a swearing ant. And I do also have the t-shirt. So it's the same image of her eating the ant, and it says, eat more protein. And it was available
her social media accounts?
Available through her social media, I believe. I believe it's Crocofant, so CROCOPHANT on Instagram. And I think on Twitter as well. But yeah, the link is in her bio, and really good material, really quick to ship, and absolutely awesome to have as a Survivor fan.
Yeah, love it. Well, shout out to Jess and shout out to you, the listeners. Thanks for being here. We'll be back next week for episode number 6.